And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited to welcome tonight the incredible New York Times best-selling author duo, Greer Hendricks and Sara Pekkanen, here to give us the inside scoop at the special pre-launch event on the Golden Couple. Ladies, welcome to Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Tell us about this book.
My God, thank you so much.
Yes.
We're super excited. Sara, let's do the divide and conquer version of our plot. You go first.
Okay. Absolutely, yes. So the Golden Couple is about a maverick therapist named Avery. She plays by nobody's rules but her own. And because of this, she is no longer a licensed practicing therapist. Her license has been yanked. And her secret sauce is that when clients walk through the door, she immediately assesses them. Mm-hmm. And if she knows that she can fix them in 10 sessions, she will take them on. But the catch is they have to do whatever she says during those 10 sessions.
So in walks Marissa Bishop, who has heard about Avery and thinks she should be able to help her with her troubled marriage. She lures her husband, Matthew, into Avery's office, and Matthew thinks they're going there because their 8-year-old son, Bennett, is being bullied. And this is not giving anything away to say that basically on page 3, Marissa says, actually, I cheated on you with the guy I met at the gym, and that's why we're here. And it's like an explosion goes off in the room. Matthew is totally blindsided, and then they have to decide, is Avery the therapist that can help their marriage.
Ooh, well, you hooked us good, ladies, which is what you are known to do. And we're going to get into every dirty detail. I have so many questions. So many questions have been submitted in advance. But first, I just want to welcome everyone who is joining us on Facebook, on YouTube. We are broadcasting live to 6 different destinations this evening. So wherever you are, you're in the right place. This is the right time. If you've been here before, you know the drill. This is your time to talk to these incredible New York Times bestselling authors. So ask them anything about the Golden Couple, about Avery, about Marissa, about Matthew, about this therapy, their research. You got a lot of questions. Get them going in the comments. I'll get them right over to them. Katcha Clue tuning in, saying she is so glad to be here. So happy to have you here as always. Anissa Joy says, hello, Sara, Greer, and Sara. So excited for this book. Anissa, welcome to the conversation, joining us live from South Carolina today. She's a big bookstagrammer, does a lot with friends in fiction. Last seen broadcasting live with Jenna Bush Hagar. Carolina, welcome. And maybe it's Carolina. Welcome. I hope I'm getting that right. She says hello, sending us love. Darla says hello from Portland, Oregon. Darla, thanks for joining the conversation. So go ahead and get your questions going in the comments, everybody. I want to kick off with saying that this book is racking up all the praise. So Taylor Jenkins Reid, author of Malibu Rising, raving, propulsive, and thrilling, a page turner that will keep you guessing till the very end. Let's talk about your process. How do you keep us guessing until the very end? Do you plot? Do you pants? Do you brainstorm? Let's talk about it.
I mean, Sara and I start, it is a good question. It's not maybe as systematic as everyone would want to think it is, but I mean, we always start off with the question of like, what if? Those are our 2 favorite words. So each book has started with like, one was kind of a lightning bolt idea, one was more character driven. Each one kind of starts in a different place, but Sara and I talk for months about the characters and the setting and where we, kind of where we think we're going with the story. It's a lot of talking. So that's kind of the beginning.
So the answer to plot versus pants, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I always compare it to taking a cross-country trip. And you kind of know the general destination, but what you may not know is like a charming little town you're going to pop into and visit, or some, the biggest ball of yarn museum that you're going to go see, or whatever little oddities along the way that kind of make the journey delightful, but often also a little bit frustrating. You might get a broken or flat tire. And for us, that's the equivalent of writing ourselves into a corner at times. But for this book, it really started with the title. Our brilliant editor, Jen Enderlin, came to us and said, I've got a title for you. I can't believe nobody's ever used it before.
Yeah.
I think you guys can write a book around this, The Golden Couple. And we were like, all right, game on, challenge accepted. We're going to go figure out a plot because we love the title.
Ooh.
Yeah. Well,
I-
and that's unusual. That's unusual. But I will say also this book, Sarah and I, we love writing about therapists and psychology. And so Avery came to us pretty quickly, and this 10 session method came to us, even if we didn't exactly know what it was going to be, but we were really jazzed up and excited about that. And then, if we had to have a golden couple. So that's when Marissa and Matthew entered the picture.
Ooh. Now I noticed you told Avery's point of view through first person. I this, I go here, I do that. And she adopts a dog, and I was so happy because I have a rescue dog. So yay, Romeo.
Me too.
Yeah.
I was terrified something was going to happen to Romeo. I was like, please don't hurt the dog. But Marissa is in the third person. Now, how come you decided to do it that way? And how did you decide who was going to be the first person? Because that's a more intimate perspective.
Mm-hmm. And making those choices is something that we put a lot of thought into. And this really began with The Wife Between Us, without giving anything away, but that was sort of pivotal for that book. For An Anonymous Girl, our second book, we played around a lot with, do we want first person? Do we want third person for Dr. Shields? And we finally settled on second person. So it's something we really give a lot of thought to, but we felt like Avery was kind of the one who was running the show a little bit more. She was figuring things out. She had a little bit more agency, and we just really wanted to dig into her. She's the one analyzing everybody else. We wanted to have that intimacy with her, and we just found her fascinating as a character. Marissa, a lot of stuff happened to her, but Avery made stuff happen. So we loved her as a character.
Ooh, well, I was fascinated because as someone who has been to therapy, who loves therapy, who has benefited so much from therapy, I always think to myself, what's my therapist thinking about me? And is she ever just like, get yourself together, And so many times when Avery says, no, I could never do this as a therapist, but I'm not licensed. So here I go. I thought to myself, I kind of want to go to Avery, see what she has to say. I want to try the 10 sessions thing.
We've been asked that a lot. Like, would we consider 10 session method going to? And it seems so efficient and effective in the hands of someone like Avery, who is just so smart and digs her heels in. So she's someone who I would maybe trust to do that. Maybe not with everybody, but yeah, who doesn't want to solve, bring your biggest problems, your boyfriend, your mother, your boss, whatever, bring it to Avery. She'll help you figure it out.
Exactly. And that actually, I remember reading an article about 5 or 6 years ago about this therapist who was doing things like that. And she would say, listen, I can't remember. I think she did give up her license, but she said, you know what, I can do for you. But she had this one couple book a 10-hour session instead of, just doing it once, for 1 hour, 50 minutes or, once a week. She was like, let's just do this. And the couple was exhausted afterward. I think I read it in New York Magazine or something. It was fascinating. Anyway, the questions are pouring in. Let's get to them. Andrea Chapman says, hi ladies. How did you come up with the idea with the story? So you started to say that your editor, did she just call you out of the blue and say the golden couple go? And then you said, let's noodle. How did this go though, after the editor called you?
Lots and lots of talking. Greer mentioned earlier that we love writing about therapy. We wrote a fair amount about that in our second book, An Anonymous Girl. We also love digging into complicated marriages, as we did with The Wife Between Us. So we knew we wanted to have, kind of the dual perspectives and two different characters. And it just evolved through countless hours of conversations and what we call our walk and talks, which is 9 a.m., clip the leashes on the dogs. And I have a little rescue dog too, named Lila, who's next to me, a little almost 3-legged rescue dog. So we walk a little more slowly now, but, we just go out and we begin to say, what if this? Well, what about this? I read an article about this. Could we, what if we twist that a little bit and put in this element? And at the end of the day, we might have come up with 100 ideas. We might toss out 99, but that one idea is going to make its way into the plot.
And then we egg each other on. Sara will toss something out and then I'll add to it and she'll say, oh, this, and, what about that? And it's just a very, thoughtful, collaborative process. And so, as Sara was saying, we normally walk and we have to first talk about like what's going on in our lives because, we're women and we need to know because that's going to inform the writing day. If I'm having an issue with a kid or she's, worried about something. So we talk and then we talk a lot about the plot. And then our goal was we would try to like write a scene a day and then talk about the next scene. So the next day on our next walk and talk, we'd kind of have, sort of like something in our back pocket. That makes it sound, again, very systematic. It didn't always work that way. And pre-COVID, we would also try to go to each other's cities like every other month and bring these giant Post-its. And we try to do that, especially during like in between different parts or when we were brainstorming and just kind of, use those giant Post-its in the hotel to brainstorm, our crazy ideas. No bad ideas.
Yay, I love that. And Nisa would like to know, what's the biggest hurdle y'all have had to clear as co-writers? Okay, and Nisa's asking the therapist question. Let's talk about your hurdles. What struggles have you had?
I mean, I would say early on, one of the biggest ones was how do we write when we're in two separate cities? When we decided to write together, we didn't really think about the fact that, I'm in DC and Greer's in New York and neither of us is planning to move. So how do we actually do this? So the first couple days, I went up to New York for a night or two and we sat together, with laptops, staring at the same screen. But then when I went home, we're like, oh, gosh, we didn't really think this through. What are we going to do now? And luckily, teenagers always come up with the solutions for all of us when it has to do with technology. Greer has a teenage daughter who said, have you guys ever heard of this, thing called Google Docs and Google Hangouts? And we're like, no, tell us more about this magical thing. And she's like, oh, brother. All right, let me get you set up on this. So she solved that problem for us.
I love that, and so cool to know the next generations helping to keep to further your writing process. Anissa, thank you for the great question. Thank you, ladies, for the great answers. Katcha would like to know, how does the process work as co-writers? So do you, and for those who don't know, Greer, you started out as Sara's editor. So were you thinking, my God, this woman's talented, maybe I'd like to work with her? Do you literally talk about every single word choice? Does one person write one chapter? Give us the skinny.
Yeah. So I edited 7 of Sara's books, and when I left corporate publishing, in the back of my mind, I wanted to write, but that's like a really scary thing to say, or at least it was for me. And so I wasn't really telling many people at all, but Sara and I had gotten really close over the time that we'd worked together, and we had all these, similarities, and we both studied psychology and journalism. We were both terrible cooks and we're the same age and just so many things. And so I confessed the secret to Sara, and she said, she knew, I was serious about this. And she said, well, maybe we should write a book together. And I was like, wow, like she's written these books. She clearly knows how to do this by herself. And a part of me was like, oh, I should try to do this on my own. And I was like, oh my God, you're crazy. I'd written some articles. I'd edited a bunch of books, but I don't know how to, I didn't know how to write a book. So I called her back 12 hours later and said, let's do it. So that's how that started. And then, as Sara said, we had to figure out the whole technology. Like, we went into it, it was like being madly in love, where there's like no obstacles to anything. And we were just like, we're just going to figure this out. But we don't, to answer the question, many co-writers do alternate chapters or take on different characters. And from the get-go, we wanted to write every line together. And so that's when that Google Doc, Google Hangout came into play, because you could see, you're literally looking at the same screen.
Now, Sara, what was it like for you to have Greer editing 7 of your books? Did you find her brutal, heartless, or she just back with red ink all over the page? Or
oh my gosh, no!
Ender?
I imagined before I started writing that editors did that because I had come up in newspapers and magazines, and I have had many great editors, but a city editor on deadline is going to be a little gruff, like they're going to be like, oh, that lead's horrible, don't. But book editors, like, they really realize that you're putting your heart and soul into something. It might take you a year, and they're very kind and nurturing, and no, it's much more a collaboration, both with Greer and the editor we work with now, that they read the finished manuscript and they say, what about doing this? What do you think about this? And you kind of go back and forth. And yeah, so it was great.
So Greer, for you as a former editor, now as a writer working with an editor, do you find yourself thinking, listen, lady, I know what I'm doing, like back off my manuscript?
Oh my God, no. First of all, as Sara said, we have the best editor. I mean, Jen Enderlin is brilliant and kind and nurturing, and also really collaborative in the way that I think that that I was. So, oh no, we are so grateful for her because she's able to see things. When you're writing any kind of book, but especially I feel like us, they're just like, it's so twisty and turny, and you sometimes don't know how something's coming exactly across on the page. What she does, which is interesting, is she doesn't just edit, she's also very additive. So if she thinks of something that will make the book better, that isn't just taking away, she will suggest it. And that I think is truly like one of her many brilliant qualities. But no, incredibly grateful for her.
Yay.
Yeah.
So in terms of, do you ever, because you are co-writing this when you're on that road trip you were describing, Sara, do you ever disagree about where and how to pull over? Hey, I'm hungry. Well, I'm not hungry yet. I have to pee. Tough luck. I mean, how do you agree when to pull over, where to pull over, what detours to take?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Greer, can you get this one?
Yes.
Allergies.
Oh no, we have a motto here. Pause. You go. This is what we have the best thing about having a co-writer is when these things happen, or like I've made mistakes online. I'll be like I said something the other day, and she was like, "You mean this? You mean that?" Sara and I have a motto that if it's not working for one of us, it's not working for both of us. And so if there's an issue, we use that as an opportunity to come up with something better. There's got to be like, maybe A's not working, B's not working, but C is going to be, even better than either of them. And neither of us are, we don't have big egos. There's just like, we don't, we just want what's best for the book. It's like parenting a child. So it's not whether you're right or I'm right. It's how are we going to get to what's best for the story.
I love that. And Greer and Sara, anything to add to that? What's the co-parenting, co-creation process like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's going to be creative differences, of course, but you can have the attitude of this can actually improve the project. Let's talk through it. We always say if it's not working for one of us, it's not working for both of us. So as long as it's respectful communication and all of that, and talking back and forth, I think it actually improves the book.
I love that. And I mean, that sounds like not just a lovely partnership, but just a lovely friendship and a lovely life partnership. I mean, that would be a great marriage to have that kind of respect and consideration and deference and inclusion. I mean, how absolutely lovely. Deb is saying howdy from Pasadena, Texas with her cowboy emoji. Deb,
howdy.
Howdy. Welcome to have you. Always a pleasure, ma'am. Sharon is saying hello from Minnesota. And she says, wow, so the title was first and everything flowed from there.
Yes.
So you never considered another title. You were just like, this is it. Very cool. What about the cover? Let's talk about this gorgeous cover to go with this fabulous title. Was this also your first cover? Did you love it immediately?
It was not our first cover. So the wife between us, it was interesting because as an editor, I dreamed of what the cover for my first book was going to look like. And then Sara and I, our editor, said, we've got a cover to show you. And Sara and I both, we were like, I wonder what they're going to do. And for that book, they sent us one cover. We both burst into tears. It was so gorgeous. It was so perfect. They nailed it. And then for books 2 and 3, because the first book was such a success, they kind of used sort of that template and created 2 other great covers. But for this book, they wanted something a little different. It was not the first cover, but I guess much like the editing or writing process, it went through many iterations and we both love it. Like it is just, it's gorgeous. It's so beautiful, but it was not the first.
What did the first look like that was not the right one?
There
I'm
was
trying to
one that
remember
had,
it now.
I remember
Yeah.
some. There was one that had like one that looked like it almost like had like a dead body lying on like on
Mhm.
her back, and then there were two with like these like teenagers kind of dancing on a beach. They all had actually really cool elements, but this one is just I don't know, just much more like sophisticated, and all of it worked together. When we saw this, we didn't really make any changes, I don't think.
No, this was it. Our editor said, she wanted to go in a different direction for this cover. And we were looking at the one she had sent. And I remember we're kind of trying to decide which one do we like best.
Yeah.
And she said, hold on, I've got an
Yeah.
idea, sit tight. And then she came back with the golden couple. And we were both immediately saying, this is it. But this is how, she also sketched the cover for The Wife Between Us. She said, I have this, let's do this. And she sketched it for the designers to create that cover.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow, I love that. Carolina would like to know, how long does it take y'all to write a book together? Great question.
About
Yeah,
a year.
Yeah.
Okay, so from the
I mean,
time that your editor called and said, what about the golden couple? It took you 1 year to write it.
Yeah, more or less. A year is sort of the model for commercial fiction. Most authors, come out with a book a year. So that's not to say you're writing every day. You're conceiving the idea, then you're writing, and then when you turn it in, it starts going through the publication process, copy editing, and all of that. So, which is why we're generally like bringing out a book and thinking about a different book. It's sort of hard to remember, which thing you're talking about. And, we've got 4 books now. So it's kind of like calling the dog or the kids by the dog's name. Sometimes it's like, wait, are we talking about Avery? Are we talking about Nellie? But yeah, about a year to answer your question in a roundabout driving cross country kind of way.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, our third book actually took a lot longer. We talked endlessly about the plot. Then we thought we had it. Then we wrote 200 pages. Then we every day when Sara and I like have kind of writer's block or feel like we don't know what we're going to write next. We're like, well, what's the next great scene that we want to write? And we got to about 200 pages in that book and we could not think of one more scene that could drive the plot forward. And so we scrapped those pages and moved. We were in a very isolated location and we moved the book to New York City, and it just opened up the entire story for us. So that one took a little longer.
Yes.
Very cool. Melissa saying, hi, Sara, Greer, and Sara. Good day from Oz. Good day from Australia.
Oh,
welcome,
wish
Melissa.
we were there.
Right, because it's summer in Australia, so Melissa's probably headed to the beach later.
Nice.
Melissa, thanks so much for tuning in. It's so great to have you here. Leslie saying hello from Canada. That's her signature Canadian hello. We have a lovely international group here today. Always a pleasure to have both of you ladies. Thank you so much for joining us. Sherry says, do you know the ending when you start writing, or do the characters influence you? Cool question, Sherry.
Yeah, I mean, we generally know the ending. Maybe not immediately when we start writing, but if we don't know where we're going, it's hard to, create the scenes that are going to have, the elements you need, the foreshadowing and all of that. So we generally have an idea of where we're going. We may not know every detail, and it may change a bit here and there. For example, for The Wife Between Us, we originally thought the entire third act was going to be letters. And we wrote that in the proposal. Say that, I cringe. I know, like that just would not have worked. We wrote that in the proposal, and then we had the idea for the epilogue that we tacked onto the proposal. When we went to write the book, obviously the whole third act is not in letters, but we left off the epilogue. And our editor read it and said, hey, you're missing something. I love that piece. Add it back in. So it would have been a different ending.
Wow. Wow. Greer, anything to add to that?
Yeah, just that I think that sometimes we at least think we know what the ending is going to be for all of our books, and then sometimes it does end up like kind of deviating or changing back and forth. And with The Wife Between Us, we had we didn't do that, we didn't do the epilogue. Then we wrote, it was a much softer ending. Then we went back to the epilogue, but it wasn't totally working the way that we wanted to work. And that was really a great example, I feel like, of Sara and I talking about how to make it work. It was so important to us that, that book has so many amazing twists, and the end had to live up to the promise. Like, you can't just have your best material, all in the front. And so we spent a lot of time nailing that ending. Yeah.
Well, you nailed it.
Okay.
So many people were DMing and commenting when I announced that we were going to have this event, and they said that they loved The Wife Between Us, that it's one of their favorite books. So clearly, you nailed it. Anissa is harkening back to when you said that your teenage daughter helped you get the wonder of the Google Docs. Can't live with them. Can't live without them. Do they continue to help you, keep it current, keep it going, or was it a one-trick pony?
Well, I'm just sad. So I'm happy my daughter's off at college. That's a good thing, but it is hard. It is hard when any tech problems happen, because my husband has no patience for that. And she was always the one. She was so patient. So many times Sara and I would be doing an interview like this, and Paige would be like in the background helping both of us often, like get things, set up and figure it out. So they're also techie. Your kids too. Dylan was helping you just the other day. Didn't he help you?
Yeah, I have two that are off at college. My 13-year-old is very gentle and sweet, and he'll just go in and at lightning speed fix a few things. I have no idea how he does it. It's like a different language, but thank goodness for them. Yeah.
Yay. Darla says this may be related to the earlier question, but do you ever get upset with each other?
It's really important to have that respect, and that, just like with a marriage, right? Like, of course, there's going to be, arguments, here and there about different little things. But I mean, what friends don't have that? What marriage doesn't have that? It's just, we always come back to that, respect and friendship. And there have been so many years of friendship that, I would say that's how we handle it.
I know. I feel like people are always, they want to hear like some kind of like cat fight or something like, like dramatic. And I think that's what Sara's saying. There's so much like love and respect, and we've known each other, such a long time. I got choked up. Are you wearing your magic necklace?
I am. I'm wearing my magic necklace. Yes. Greer had these made for us. So these are charms, and there's a different stone that matches the color of every one of our book covers.
Oh, I love.
So the golden couple has this beautiful golden
white one. Yeah. Golden
moonstone. Whose idea was that?
Greer got them for us. And then for my birthday every year, she sends me a new charm.
Oh my gosh. This is the cutest friendship writing duo ever. I love this. I think I've hosted 10 writing teams. So I've hosted 2 husband and wives, best friends from college, male best friends from college, male, female best friends from college, people who aren't friends, but just partners. And this is my favorite so far. I absolutely love this.
And now Sara always sends me things, I think, for my, like, often like the computer standard thing, like when I was having neck pain, like she'll send me anything to like, that heater that I still use all the time, or
like a lavender thing that you microwave.
The heat wrap.
Yeah.
She sent me.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she sent me this tangerine thing to inspire like creativity, and so we're both pretty good gift givers, I would say.
I love this, and you nurture each other with gifts. This is so lovely. And Nellie is saying she loves hearing about your collaborative and respectful process. Beautifully said. Collaborative and respectful. I love hearing about it too. It's so heart-filling. Thank you for the comment. Carolina is saying thank you for answering her question.
I love seeing the pet pictures on their Facebook profiles. I'm like, look at that little cat. It's so cute. This is a dog a minute ago.
Yeah.
And she says, thank you for your answer. This is the friendship is so beautiful. I totally agree. It's so wonderful. So this book is racking up. Oh, Sharon is chiming in. She loves that you have jewelry to match. Oh, she's suggesting perhaps matching tattoos. That would be, what would be the tattoo you guys would get?
Oh my gosh.
One of our mottos is better together. So it could be like better together, right? Like a heart, or we could have a number one, there's a lot of ways this could go. Could be a pen.
I love that. Well, ladies, this book is racking up amazing praise. Congratulations. Lisa Jewell raving that this is utterly compelling, a spellbinding read. I'm just going to pop this up for one quick second because otherwise we can't see Sara. But just it's so wonderful to see to see this praise rolling in. What do you think reels people in that way? What do you think they resonate with? Because I've been trying to analyze from a craft perspective. Why am I so sucked in? I have to know. What do you think makes a spellbinding read?
You mean in general, or why do you think people are so drawn to this particular book?
To this one, but let's answer it both ways, in general and in this one.
I mean, I think a piece about this one is that, especially now as we're all so isolated, we're seeing a lot of each other's lives play out on social media. And it's very, I think, difficult for some people who are struggling, and who isn't struggling with, something, a parent, a child, job loss, whatever it is, just, the after effects and the current effects of COVID. And yet when you sometimes go on social media, you will see the golden couples, the people who have the perfect marriage and the perfect children. And I think that can make us feel worse about ourselves and more disconnected. And it's also a false narrative, I think, when people are just putting out the positives all the time. So I think, the glimpse into the life that appears very enviable, a couple that has everything. And when you kind of like peek in their nightstands and read their journals, which this book allows you to do figuratively, I think it maybe just makes people feel a little bit less alone. Everybody struggles.
What about you, Greer?
I think that's a big piece of it. I also think that Avery as a character, because she just is, she says it like it is, probably there's a part of all of us that wishes we could be a little bit more, like Avery, who acknowledges the truth of her feelings and, has created this job for herself because she feels like this is the right way to do it. I also think our writing style, they're short chapters. You leave a chapter and you're like, a little bit of a bump, what's going to happen next? So there's a real page turner quality to it as well in terms of, the style.
Ooh, totally. I just realized I should have put myself at the bottom. I'm gonna switch us out here, Sara. There, you guys should be at the top because you're a golden couple. I will be down here hosting you. So I think one of the things, because I was really trying to think about this, why am I so sucked in here? Why do I love these books? Why do I love these characters? And I think it's everything that you both said, but I think there's also these incredibly poignant little moments that are so viscerally felt. So it's not always the big action moments. So for instance, one thing that I always remember is when Marissa is sending their 8-year-old son Bennett off to school, and she notices that his backpack straps make his shoulders look really narrow. And I think we've all seen a little kid wearing a backpack where the backpack's a little bit too big for them. And it just, as soon as it clicked, I could see this fragile, vulnerable little boy with his little narrow shoulders. And I was like, oh my God, yes. Or, when you're describing her store and it was like, oh, the bath salts from Paris and the local honey from here. And I was like, we've all been in a store like that. And it's these little visceral moments that are so relatable, or also that ache of yearning or worrying or wondering. It's so human. How do you inject those moments? How do you zoom in, but then zoom out?
Well, I think what you're talking about with Bennett, this was the first book that Sara and I had created where there was a child, and Sara has 3 boys and I have one. But so creating Bennett was we were so like touched by him. I think that has to come across because of our experiences, with our kids, whether it's Cub Scouts with Sara experience, or like quizzing your kid on their like spelling bee, those little moments of inhaling their scent, like they're so true to, to us.
Oh yeah.
Whereas a lot of our books are not really true to us. I mean, hopefully, because a lot of kooky things happen. But I think the parenting part of it just really probably, it came from our hearts. And I think the specifics are what make any book really special, right? You have to, pick those specific details. I remember in our first book, Sara always pointed out this one thing that I had said that she always used as an example of a specific detail that she loved, which I always thought was so funny, which was about that a character didn't like sesame seeds on a hamburger bun or whatever. And you always said, you're like, oh, I love that was something that you brought out. And so we try to do that all the time, is to think about those specific little details.
Yeah, and I would add to that if you don't feel it as a writer, the reader is not going to feel it. If you are not in that space where you're feeling emotional, I mean, sometimes, there are tears when we're writing, themes that are especially difficult, but you really have to, it's almost like acting in a way where actors have to become the character. You have to do that when you're writing for it to really feel authentic. And then once you're in that place, you can look around and see what's in the scene and kind of see what details there are to bring in and to add.
So when you became Avery for the day or Marissa for the day, did you ever have trouble, getting back out of that character in time for dinner?
There are certain moments, like Aunt Charlotte in The Wife Between Us, like she always made us cry. Like literally we would be like writing scenes with her, and it was really, emotional. I think it was a little easier to get in and out of some characters because you're just, like I said earlier, we really egg each other on. So sometimes we could be writing a really creepy scene. I'm going to make us sound so dysfunctional here, but we will be just like laughing away, like egging each other on in certain moments, just because, I mean, sometimes you just have to like bring humor into some of these very, dark, twisty moments.
Yeah, but I would say yes, like when you're in that scene and then you come out of it, it's very disorienting. It is like you go into a movie theater, which we've all done in the daytime.
Yes.
Sun shining brightly, you walk out and it's night. It's kind of like, wait, where am I? Who are you? And, it takes a little while to adjust to the real world as opposed to the world that you've created and you've been living in for the past, 8 hours.
Oh my God. Yes. I have had that feeling. I know exactly what you're talking about. Christine says, I love all of your books. You all are the dream team. It may have been asked already as I came in late, but what made you want to write together?
Yeah, I mean, I had written, as I mentioned, newspapers and magazines. I had teamed up with other writers in the past, not for books, certainly, but for, maybe a longer magazine piece, a longer newspaper piece. So I enjoyed that. Like, it was kind of fun to collaborate. And Greer and I had become very close as, an editor-author team. We would have our dinners in New York where we would talk for hours and hours. And, I knew some co-writing teams. I knew, Liz and Lisa, for example, Liz Fenton and Lisa Steinke, who I adore. And so I think all of that was kind of brewing together. And then when Greer mentioned she was leaving corporate publishing, she said to me, would you mind if, I, had some ideas, if I bounce them off you, or if I get some pages down, would you mind, looking at them? And I said, well, instead of that, let's just write a book together. It just kind of came out. But I go with my gut, and it rarely leads me wrong when it's a very strong feeling. It might lead me wrong a little, here or there if I'm shopping and I'm like, oh yeah, I could totally wear that. And, but a big thing, it never does. So yeah, so that's how it started.
Greer, you had said that when you left your career in editing, you confessed your secret to Sara, and your secret was that you too wanted to write a book. But you found the idea terrifying, something that I think all of us who have ever wanted to write a book or dreamed a big dream find terrifying. Why do you think that is so terrifying? And how do you overcome the fear to get the words on the page?
Well, I think it's the fear, at least I can only speak for me, but is fear of not succeeding. And when you've been someone who has, I'd been a successful editor for 20 years. I knew I could do that job. I had done it and I loved it. But when you're trying something new and you might not succeed, that's, that's terrifying. I mean, and that's also innate to my personality. Like when I was training for a marathon many years ago, I didn't tell people I was training for a marathon because I was terrified I wouldn't be able to run the marathon. There's some people who just put stuff out there and then, and feel like if they don't do it, then it doesn't really matter. That's not my style. I'm like just more, kind of more cautious. And what enabled me to do it is this person right over, wait, how do I point to Sara? Was Sara. I mean, she held my hand. Like we leapt off this cliff together. And so there was an accountability, there was a support, there was, someone saying, that's a great idea. And, and what if we did this? So that's, I mean, I got that's what I would say is what enabled me to do it, which is why I was like, this is crazy. Of course I should write a book with her. This is going to be a master class in learning how to write, to be like side by side with someone who has done this, 7 times. And obviously I loved her writing because I had been her editor. So I had taken her on.
Sara, you were set. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, we're talking about fear. I have to grab something. I'll be right back to show you guys.
Good. Because I want to hear it from your perspective too, as someone who was 7 books ahead. Are you still scared? How do you deal with it?
So this is something I have in my office that I can see every day. And this is one of my mottos. This is one of my mottos. I firmly believe that you need to dive into fear. And I will take on things that terrify me. I used to be phobic about flying. As a cub reporter, I reported on a plane crash. I listened to the transcripts of the black box. I interviewed a couple survivors. I developed a pretty severe phobia about flying. And for my 50th birthday, I took flying lessons to learn how to fly a plane. And so when something really scares me, I didn't used to do this. I used to actually let my fears kind of crowd me into a smaller place. And it was kind of the more that they won, the more I shrunk a little. But I began very deliberately diving into them. And so whether it's, I went scuba diving and saw a shark on my first dive. And I used to be terrified of sharks. Like whatever it is, I'm like, if it's going to scare me, I need to do it. Because I think that, there is a lot of growth in that. For this, though, I didn't feel scared. I was like, oh, this will be great. There was no fear. It was just the feeling that, it was a big risk on both of our parts because I knew that I had, a nice, job writing solo books, and Greer knew she had a nice job editing solo books. So, there was that risk, but I would say it felt more exhilarating than terrifying, and I think that we had each other too, to kind of say, let's hold hands and jump and let's see where we land.
Oh, I love that. And I myself have a terrible fear of flying, and almost paralyzing fear of flying, which happened to me after 9/11 when 2 of my neighbors died in the crash. And Sara. I was never scared before that. But then when they died, I was like, oh my God, people, can actually die. And it's very hard for me to get on a plane. I can still do it, but it is weeks of worrying, and then it's a lot. So thank you for sharing that, because I never sort of share that, because everyone else seems to effortlessly just get on the plane like they're getting on the bus. And I'm over here like, blessing the plane. And
I mean, remember the motto of the golden couple? Like, if we pretend that things are perfect and our lives are perfect and we don't struggle, then people feel alone. And I felt like you did when I would fly. I would be there shaking in tears, every little bump. I'm like, what does that mean? What does that ding mean? Is that code between the pilot and the, flight attendant?
Yes.
So it was terrifying. And I think, I've read that a lot of women in their 30s and 40s do tend to get phobias. I imagine now it may be worse because we're just so anxious as a culture, rightfully so, with everything that's gone on in the world. But, in being open about it, we take away the power of what that fear has over us. So I'm glad. Thank you for telling us.
Oh, thank you for opening the conversation. I've actually never shared that before. Christine saying she loves that idea. She has a fear of heights, but she is still trying new things. Christine, get it, girl.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I always try to come up with a new motto each year for like a theme. And my theme this year was gutsy, because I have a lot of anxieties as well. And they're very, they're just like going for a run and like getting lost in the woods, like being like scared on a, like on a running trail. Like it seems so, you say these things and it seems so sort of, pathetic. But I think what Sara was saying before is like everybody has something, if it's like a fear of, driving or swimming or flying. Like I bet you everyone out there, right? Spiders, whatever, everyone who's listening, I bet you that they all have something that scares them.
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad we're having this conversation. I am so glad.
It's like group therapy. We all need Avery.
Oh my God. And Avery would have me and Avery would have me on a plane within probably 5 sessions. Oh my goodness. I want to remind y'all, this book isn't even out. This is a special pre-launch event we're doing tonight. So y'all pre-order the book tonight. And the good folks at Murder at the Book will send your copy out to you tomorrow. And you too can be devouring this book. So I'm popping the link right up here in the comments. So everybody grab it right here. Click over, order it, order a few, choose it for your book club. You're going to love it as much as I do. Saying thank you. So Deb saying thank you so much for the great discussion. Thank you guys for all the hearts up on Facebook. Has been so wonderful. Sara and Greer, you are amazing. You are the dream team, as Christine said. Thank you so much for coming on. I am loving this book, and I cannot wait to have you back for your next one.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for everyone for the great questions. Yeah.
Yay. Thank you everyone for joining us. Everyone saying thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Anissa. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, everybody. I'll be back at the top of the hour with Kelly Garrett. I will see you then. Greer and Sara, thank you so much. Yay. Caitlin Greensginsburg, thank you so much for being here. Yay. Sharon saying, I can't wait to read this. Wendy saying, thanks everyone. Christine, congratulations. Your book. Being a book of the month.
I love book month.
Yeah, we love Murder by the Book. We've been there before, so I'm
we have.
We're together there. Bookstore.
Carolina saying thank you. Sharon saying thanks. Everybody, thank you so much. And we will see you at the top of the hour. And Greer and Sara will see you when your next book comes out. So next year.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.